So I noticed in the agenda there are actually no time limits. I saw that earlier, Mark. So I'm assuming we can just go on all morning. No, I know we're actually probably running pretty late, but hopefully you'll bear with us and we can take at least a couple questions from the audience for our panelists, if anyone has any questions. Yeah, go ahead.
For Mr. Koenig, I believe you said 43% of U.S. households own a smart TV. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's from our recent study. We've been doing an annual survey of 2,000 U.S. households for 17 years. And again, as I mentioned, with nascent technologies, we often see consumers are self-reporting ownership. So they think they own something and they actually don't. Mm-hmm. But that is the statistic. You are correct. But that's where we have margin of error in market research as well. But I think that it's pretty close to the mark because when we think about how long we've had these displays, and we're not necessarily we're saying do you have a connected TV, and there are many varieties. So yeah.
Well, the reason I ask is because it seemed high A, and B, not that many years ago, household turnover for TV sets was something like 20 years. Every 20 years you buy a new TV.
Actually, it was closer to 8 to 10.
Was it? Well,
Yeah.
Well, what is it now?
It's actually been decreasing, so it's closer to 8. It's been in the past. It's been closer to like 9 and 10, but we're seeing that come down.
Mm-hmm. We see that as
Thank you for your question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Question for Steve. I'd like to understand the market trend for TVs with 4K, and especially with the feature, HDR feature. And on one of the slides, you had different segments showing how many people buy TVs for bigger screen or newer sets. The percentage, although the percentage doesn't add up to be 100%, I say it's a double counting.
It's a multi-select, yeah. People have a range of reasons.
I noticed that about 22% people think that they buy TV for newer technology. Another 22% think buy TVs for a more efficient device. So what's your insight on that with HDR TV, which might consume a little bit more power?
Sure. Well, I think energy efficiency, just thinking back over the history of our research, that's always been further down the list. Obviously, price is chief among any purchase drivers for any device technology. Beyond that, we see elements like brand or various features really behind the purchase. I would wager that in the coming years, obviously, energy prices are not expected to decrease necessarily, with the exception of price at the pump here lately. But over time, I think that energy efficiency may, in fact, creep up a bit higher, and people will start to look at that. But this is why we have programs like Energy Star and others. Some manufacturers even go beyond that standard, certainly when you think about activities in California. But for the new technology at 22%, I think we're getting a window in here to the early adopters, which that, again, is a stat that's pretty close to describing the percent of consumers that are self-described early adopters of technology. Those people purchase new technologies just on principle, don't they? But energy efficiency, again, I think even though people have concern, it's further down the list as the data suggested with regard to other feature and elements, and certainly price. Thank you for your question.
Anything else? I see, yep.
Do you think in 2015 it's time to ban the term exclusive over the air? It seems that no one is exclusive over the air anymore, and a better term would be total over the air, because cable households have the over-the-air TV in the garage, in the game room. It just seems like exclusive over the air should be banned. Any comments?
How about complete? No, I don't know. Yeah. Please go ahead. Yeah.
No, I tend to agree. I think this probably is also sort of a self-reporting thing, right? They think that's what, but they don't think about the one that's in the garage. Everybody, I think, has so many options and so many ways that they get things. That with the their consoles in the basement and the TV and cable. So there are a lot of ways that people get it for sure.
Yeah, and if you remember from the data slide that I had up, it's actually a very small number of households, again, self-reported, that say that the only way that they receive television signals is via antenna. And that was a similar number to the number of households, the percent of households that say the only way I receive TV programming is via the internet.
Well, and I
Those
think
are the bookends.
I think the other thing to think about is that the definition of television is changing. I think you probably see it in your research, we see it in ours, when we say to people, what are you watching? Well, I'm watching television. But then you say, well, but what are you watching it on? And they totally think about watching television on an iPad or on a smartphone because it's a video product that they used to get on the TV, and so they move that term has become something beyond just the flat thing on the wall, which is good for us as well, I think.
Great. So yeah, we'll do one more.
Steve, you had one slide where you said that connected TVs have been over 42%, and I can see where some folks may look at that and say, "Wow, it's really timing and maybe overtaking broadcast." But I assume that part of that, much like 4K, the function happens to exist on 90% of the TVs that go to Best Buy to buy today. So of that, what appears to be a high spike number that may be driven just because it's there. What is the actual usage of that? What I believe that is good.
That's where it gets interesting, yeah, because you're differentiating between ownership of a technology and actual usage. And let me come back to you because I don't recollect the statistic just offhand, but I'd be delighted to come back to you because we have examined that in our research. I'm a little bit foggy on the exact stat, but certainly to your point, use is not congruent with ownership. So that's why it's interesting to look at things like percent of households owning a given technology, the installed base, but really when you get down to brass tacks, the use of those is really what we would describe as, certainly from a content perspective, like the addressable market. But I have heard just anecdotally a number of manufacturers like Vizio and so forth report that the vast majority, and they have ways of determining this, the vast majority of their sets do in fact ultimately are connected. And I think that probably it's pretty true across most platforms simply because those platforms have become increasingly robust. And in terms of the offerings, for everything from games to Netflix, you have embedded cameras for video conferencing or Skype in the living room. The list goes on. So I think there are more reasons for people to connect these days, certainly, than there were, say, just even 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, I would further comment, just for anyone who really thinks that's a high number, go look at subscriber numbers for Netflix, Amazon Prime, and Hulu, just those 3 sources. And you may be shocked at how many U.S. households have subscriptions. I think some of these numbers are shot. 40% around that of connected TV devices does not sound high to me. It is a large number that might scare some people in this room. So, which leads me to the conclusion of the panel. Hopefully, I think I was thinking about how I could summarize this panel, and what popped into my head was be afraid, be very afraid. But I think the point is, hopefully what we've learned is, look, we live in this world of disruption where things are changing. It's really obvious, and an answer is not to sort of bury your head in the sand. I think an answer is to figure out, and hopefully I think we have heard in each of the presenters today some places, some indications that certainly television is not dead. It's changing, but there are ways in which we need to think differently about what television is, what the content is, the pipes that it uses, and the devices that it reaches in order to really secure the future. And hopefully that will help inform all of us as we go about kind of putting together ATSC 3.0. So with that, I'd like to thank all our panelists for excellent presentations and data, and thank you for listening.